Welcome to Paradigm Shifters. I'm very excited to introduce again, because he's been on several times, a very, very high conscious, loving being named Nandhiji. Nandhiji is a guru, a teacher, and he's also a householder. And we were talking about all that too, because with his amazing waves of light and healing energy and the impact he and those around him can have on the consciousness of people. We're going to get right into that. But in the meantime, I welcome you, Nandhiji, all the way from India to LA here on Paradigm Shifters.
My honor to be with you, Divine Veronica, and to each of our listeners here. Such a joy to connect.
Well, I know you've had some amazing teaching from some wonderful gurus from the ancient, kind of the ancient spiritual traditions or spiritual learning curves over in India. And here you are as a householder. How is it mingling the two?
In between, in all of this is time,
Mm-hmm.
and when we see timelessness embedded in time, it gives us a different perspective.
But you
And
can
I
do that,
realize,
can you?
yes, see, it's like this that when we work timelessness in time, each dimension of time has its responsibility and has a circle to complete. Like, in the sense, when we talk about the karmic dimensions of being in a household, that's a responsibility, and that responsibility needs to be complete as whole. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, there is different compartments in time, and during the day, we are given X number of hours of time, and how we work timelessness and time compartmentalizing each of the facets is like a wheel, and we are the spoke in the middle. We are the hub of the middle, and each spoke is a dimension that we spin around. So the 24-hour cycle is uh, is is very much like a wheel that we move through. And one thing that is pretty clear is that we all have a shelf life, and that means that
I
means
really like you put it that way.
yes, because see, the moment we realize we're the spirit having this human experience, and this human experience is counted in a number of breaths
Mhm.
and then put together in time, now we need to realize as spirit, which is a timelessness, we are time. And so, what are we here to do? Are
Mhm.
we here just to simply survive, and or are we here for a purpose?
Mhm.
The moment we realize I am here for a purpose, I am here to let my heart sing and do my heart's work, and at the same time um, take care of the responsibilities and make put even that into work. So it's I would say related to the word wholeness. And the wholeness is a powerful thing, powerful word, because in my spiritual journey, one of the dimensions that I kept coming into was from seeking to knowing. So the
Oh.
seeking process is like we are constantly on a pilgrimage. The knowing is you've reached the destination. You now are you connected to the enshrined whom you were seeking, and now as the enshrined you are in the being. So this being is wholeness. And then within the being is completing the 24-hour cycle and completing all the facets as human, as the householder, as the visionary, as the creator. As the creator, I mean, I'm talking about the artistic end of creation and creativity,
Mhm.
and each
And the
facet.
cook. Mhm.
The cooking, just about every dimension, and and then when the day is over, one of the most beautiful things is to say, "Wow, the day is done. I've done my bit."
Wow. And yeah. And now tell me this, do you think each of us has our own seeking and knowing trajectory, or what would you call it, flow, passageway?
Hmm.
Do you think everyone has that, or do you think that's just a level of consciousness that some people don't ever connect with?
I believe every one of us have it in us to be inspired.
Hmm.
And we all can be inspired beings. Now it depends on what inspires us. Now, if we have come to the knowing from the awake sense of knowing,
Hmm.
now when we are inspired, we are doing our heart's work. Now, when we start, when we align our mind into singularity of focus, come into the primordial passion to get things done, and we are stepping into the flow. Now, while we are stepping into the flow, we are also stepping above the rooftop of the mind.
Aha.
Now we are stepping into the superconscious states, and this is what the sages call turiya, the sleepless sleep. Now, once
Ah.
we stepped into the sleepless sleep state, which every one of us have, every one of us experience it nearly every day, but
Hmm.
only we don't last it long. But if we were constantly living in that, now this is yoga. This
Hmm.
is perpetuality of meditation. This is socio-union. This the sages call as tantiram. That is the sacred unions on every level of our human experience.
Would you call that being as well?
Of course, it is. It's what we now simply are. We simply are in this state, and now in this state, we unlock all the potential that is already has been in us, waiting to be woken up.
Hmm.
Now we are formidable in terms of our energy fields of creativity and doing, because now we are the spirit having this human experience with wisdom.
Wow, I really love that. So tell me this. I'm going to jump through a couple of subjects because
Hmm.
you have so much to share with us, and we need to be involved with that. So, what about the lockdown? What about COVID? What about a whole global shutdown? What do you think that, how does that impose on our beingness, our ability to relate to all these different levels of ourselves? And you know what I'm saying? How did that
Hmm.
work? How does that work?
It's been a huge, you could say, shift for humanity this particular time of the pandemic and COVID. And we suddenly have realized we have more time for ourselves than before. And this is also the age of information technology. So there's a lot of information happening, and there's a lot more in which we are connecting to the real to the deeper sense of what is like an ocean underneath. See, whatever is the reality springs from consciousness, and what's below is the ocean of consciousness. And this ocean of consciousness is now rising. This is something that is we are all tapping into consciously and unconsciously. So I would say this particular period, for the hardship it has caused, for the pain it has caused, for the suffering it has caused,
The
there is
fear,
another
the
dimension
fear.
to it.
Hmm.
We are incubating something. We are incubating our vast self during this period of time.
Mm.
So we are sort of like we are stepping into the larger, vaster beingness within ourselves through this particular period of time. So I would say we are actually ushering the new age of truth, and truth is consciousness. I would say we're ushering the age of consciousness.
So, talk again about what consciousness actually means. And I love what you're saying. I'll get back to that. But the word consciousness, I think
Yes.
some people go, so yeah, yeah, what's consciousness, you know?
Okay. Where we think from creates that level of reality.
Okay.
So as we think from a higher place, we are generating wisdom to create heavens. Consciousness is that platform from where thought springs from. So we climb up in layers of consciousness, and here we are able to have the wisdom to be able to create that which aligns our vibrational frequency to the realities.
So
So this
it's
is
a
one dimension of
recognition.
consciousness.
It's a
Hmm.
recognition that there's a lot more beyond, well, the third dimension, I guess. That who we are has many levels. Is that right?
Exactly. And this vibratory, I would rather say, this the station of the mind is determines everything. Everything is determined from where we are. But at the same time, the mind itself is like a cabbage that can be grown in fertile fields.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, consciousness can burst the mind. Like today, we can wake up one day
I
feeling
like that.
grumpy and lousy and stuff. That is one day, and that is the mind. Or another day, we can actually wake up and enable a mind that is able to conceive everything as beautiful, even if the reality is really horrible. We can still be able to work our experience. That is able to not just negate the reality, but also to twist that reality that we are experiencing into something magnificent just from the inner vibrancies of whom we are.
Hmm. I like that from the inner vibrancy. I like that a lot. I think also with the pandemic, are we? Would you agree, or would you talk about this for a minute? Are we actually connecting on an intrinsic level or in a heart level with the fact that we are one, that we are in unity consciousness at times? Do you think that's been
The pandemic
boosted?
is a big reminder to that essentially we as humans are one, and there's nowhere to go but within. And at the same time, it also is generating a newer level of thought, and we will see the effect of the newer world in the next few months as the pandemic, as with the vaccine and things, and with the pandemic under control, the next new world is going to be significantly different from the world we have seen in the past. And this newer world is what we are all readying to be
Mm-hmm.
through all of this.
Wow. Also, you use the word thought, and I'm going, is it, you said it can help create thought. Is that right? Like
Yes.
our thinking then moves through us and creates a change in our atmosphere and our society, right?
Absolutely. See, when we look at thoughts, there is this general dimension of IQ that we know, which is
Mm-hmm.
with the mind and what we know. But
Mm-hmm.
then once you step outside the mind, now there's a different dimension to the thinking process itself. So when like when you meet these sages who are the enlightened masters, their thought process is very different. In a sense, they speak from a pristine mind
Mm-hmm.
where there's no thought, and whatever that comes through is pure wisdom. And that wisdom is sort of like all knowing. It sort of like knows the future, it
Hmm.
knows the past, it is very much in the now. So this this consciousness is now is now that for everyone, is now that which is opening itself to everyone,
Well, that's
every one of
exciting.
us as
But
humanity.
you've studied so much and you've been in these deepening places of consciousness and awakening and spirituality and so on. Do you think we can catch on to it as well, quite well?
See, go back to time when we go through these masters being like Christ.
Mhm.
The reason why they had disciples in the first place was to pass that consciousness to the next round, to the next generation. So he had the 12 disciples, and those 12 disciples generated it. Like this, all these sages have been doing this similar thing across the globe, across the culture, to essentially pass consciousness so consciousness can multiply itself. And we've come to this particular place, as you know, many years ago, 200 years ago, when Swami Vivekananda came to this country. Like at that time, this America was taken by storm with the thinking process of where he was coming from, and that layer of consciousness was one wave that moved. Then came Swami Yogananda.
Mhm.
Another wave happened. Like there's waves and waves and waves of these masters came, and each of these masters came and implanted the seeds of consciousness, and that grew and multiplied. And now it's nearly with every one of us. You see a bank advertising someone doing yoga to
Mhm.
show that there's peace and safety and security of the mind. You
Mhm.
know, now yoga itself has become more like a fashion accessory. And I look
Mhm.
into it like if anybody has a drop of honey, they will go to the honey pot. So it doesn't matter which way yoga is, which way meditation is. At the end of the day, everyone is going to go to the honey pot,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
awakening to be consciousness itself.
Wow. And so what you're encouraging me to believe, because I want to believe this, that this wave of consciousness is spreading, and people like you and other great masters and teachers are what sending it out through the collective, and we're gratefully picking up on it and become, or what would you say, involving ourselves in it. So we're all being infused. That's the better way to put it, right?
Absolutely, being like say Deepak Chopra, on the other side, the Sadhguru and Sri Sri, all these beings are, like this age of information is
Mm-hmm.
when, it's accessible to anyone and everyone just seeking it. And the more of a hassle in life, the more of a problem in life, that's when we actually say, "Hey God, where are you?" That's when we start seeking. So
Uh-huh.
there's a huge layer of
We've had a lot
seeking
of hassle right
and
now.
connectivity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
oh, I'm excited. I know that you can see ahead to quite a degree, can't you? And so, how do you see us coming out of the pandemic? How do you see human nature? Because everybody's scrapping against each other, something fierce right now in lots of places around the world. And I keep hoping that as we come out of the pandemic, and we probably won't except through vaccination and so on. But how do you perceive the waves of coming out of this and what's going to happen in the society?
See, there's been a huge polarity that has taken place.
Oh.
Consciousness by itself normally rises, and it's like, we all watch, we encourage our kids to watch Disney movies because it has a level of conscious layer and level of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and we all we humans gravitate towards consciousness. But there is an underlying level of ignorance. There is an underlying level of humanity karma, like the slavery time. There
Mm-hmm.
was this karma that existed, which pops up today as racism.
Mm-hmm.
There is this cruelty within us, which pops up in the way of child separation policies,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to negate any energy here by this mention, but sadly, we've had a person like Trump come into power, and all the ugliness of the nation and all the ugliness of humans sprang up with that.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Now that it's over, and now that we have a newer possibilities with Biden coming in, and then for us to recognize the huge polarity of one end of human ignorance to the other end of being conscious and being awake. This this will definitely, like push push consciousness even further. Consciousness is being triggered now.
Mm-hmm.
because of these polarities. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, we are forced to wake up. We are forced to look into ourselves, forced to look into seeing what is the situation we have and how can change be effective. But once again, the most important dimension here is that consciousness is empowering. It's empowerment. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, if we are in the higher states of consciousness, we are also gifted with a genius
Mm-hmm.
to think outside the box, to be able to be the solution, to be the solution, the person, to be the solution.
And it can
And
happen with
beyond,
one of us at a time, right? I mean,
no,
it
it's
is.
all of us. It's like a spontaneous thing happening. If you look at the inventions of the world, take any major invention of the world, it would have been a similar idea, the similar content, the similar invention would have happened across the globe at the same time.
Hmm.
So this is the, like you're familiar with the 100 monkey theory, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am
So,
familiar.
if you can explain the 100 monkey theory to everyone, but then that is the truth of how consciousness works. That is that it's a mass, it's a mass dimension, it's a mass energy. It's
And
an
it's like
energy
an
of humanity.
evocative wave moving through people,
Hmm.
right? Or
Yes,
through life.
yes. So if just a group of us are awake, then it's only natural that the entire, humanity will spring up awake, and all the masters that paved their ways forward. And there's so many of these masters today who are awakening out. You go to the airport or go to a bookshop, you see so many books on consciousness. You
Mm-hmm.
listen to so many yoga music and mantra chants. The
Mm-hmm.
reason is that once consciousness has woken up a person, the next thing is that they are beginning to see things from a higher self, and
Mm-hmm.
then they will be coming out with self-help, and they will be coming out with the conscious solutions.
Mm-hmm. An evolution of all kinds of activities, all kinds of teachings. Well, you know what's really
Exactly.
exciting about as we talk about this, I
Hmm.
know that you have a world program that you're setting up. It's not just you, I gather, it's a group of you, is
Hmm.
that right? Do you want to
Yes.
talk about that? It's called what is it called? The
the,
Declaration.
dec- the declaration of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
See, the declaration of consciousness movement is, this actually sprang from a place where, uh, after spending years in my inner journey
Mm-hmm.
in India, going through caves and through my masters and in solitude, I then came to America, and the week I landed is when um, the the 9/11
Oh, wow.
terrorist tragedy took place.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, my thought was, how could God's name be polluted? It's like how the Nazis misused swastika. How could God's name be polluted by violence? And that was my original feeling of pain as to how this could have happened. And 3 years later, I was doing the opening ceremony of Bhakti Fest, one of the large yoga gatherings, and as I was doing the opening ceremony, I had to commemorate the September 11th, and it was on September 11th, 3 years later. So I thought, let's question Allah itself, himself, herself, on
Mm-hmm.
why, what is the solution to this. So we all chanted the name Allah, and just 2 years later, the solution came. It's consciousness.
Ah.
Consciousness is that which is the only truth, and the truth within all religions. All religions have a content of consciousness, and that is the only truth.
Hmm.
And if we step into understanding consciousness, then almost in a moment, all the solutions are there for us. From global warming on one side
Mm-hmm.
to, this further, like if religions all upgrade itself to understanding that that violence has no place, women are equal.
Mm-hmm.
Children have to be protected. Elders need to be respected. Like this, like these freedom of thought. Like I
Mhm.
could worship anybody, anything I want. I could even worship my pen if I want. I might not even worship God. That's my right
Mhm.
and my like likewise. So all
And
of this, if you
worshiping itself builds integrity and consciousness, doesn't it? It's a
yeah,
spiritual
I
flow.
mean
Hmm.
exactly because every one of us have our own station in our journey.
Hmm.
And so, you could not might not even worship God, might worship God outside, might worship God inside, but that's my individual choice, my inherent right, intrinsic right.
Mm.
So consciousness by itself, can is definitely an absolute need through organizations in all forms. Likewise, through entertainment, through media, through services, through professional, through our job, through our work. So if consciousness touches and connects with every human on planet Earth, now we step into the new age where humans are now angelic beings. And the realities we've created is heavens because we've stopped wars.
Mm.
Where consciousness is, abundance is.
Hmm. That's wonderful.
A,
So, go ahead.
a place a place like say South India, for instance, has had been untouched by any invasion of any kind for over 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years of its history, of its
Wow.
known history. There was no invasion around it. So the result of that was deep wisdom of spirituality, science, wisdom of food, the wisdom of tolerance,
Hmm.
understanding nonviolence. So when Mahatma Gandhi said, "Okay, let's protest and let's do it in a nonviolent way," and they called it satyagraha,
Hmm.
instantly all of India were takers. They immediately understood it to be perfectly aligned to their reasoning. And
Hmm.
so it had the total participation of India, and that's what made satyagraha, the movement of nonviolence, such a powerful force
Because
that
the wave had
eventually,
been started already. Is that what you're saying?
exactly, because
Yeah.
people understood it.
Yes,
They
I get it.
understood
That's great.
nonviolence to being a core principle within. So my grandfather, for instance, was a freedom fighter, and he aligned with Mahatma Gandhi. He was an industrialist, and he aligned with Mahatma Gandhi. And like him, there are so many others all across India. That's because there was the bed of consciousness that was already there, that understood this principle. And the
Hmm.
moment this principle was put together in the form of protest, it worked. So what happened? All this is because where consciousness is, there is the deeper growth of human. The human to the angelic happens in
Hmm.
absence of war, in absence of fighting, in absence of everything. Then now they're sharing. So anybody, any refugee who through thousands of years of Indian history who came to India, anyone who came to India, they were treated as the guest, and there's a saying, "Our guest is our God."
Oh, wow. Really? Is that because
So,
you
if, for
have to
instance,
think of
anyone goes
new?
to India, one of the experiences is, being overwhelmed by hospitality because there's a concept, our guest is our God.
Hmm.
And all of this is only because, especially South India, was because there was no no major invasion or anything from outside forces. But this is, if the whole world was conscious, now we would all be abundant in not just resources, but also in love, in sharing, in wisdom, in seeing ourselves as brothers and sisters, as one humanity.
And there's an intrinsic respect in that for others too, isn't there?
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I'm really
See, when
excited about what you're doing. You're actually setting up and coordinating and organized a world. What you talk about, you're creating a declaration, or you have done, right?
yes.
And
So
then
what
how
we
does
are
it?
looking, uh-huh,
Go
what
ahead.
we're seeing is, if a nation like India adopts it, if all the nations across the globe adopt the Declaration of Consciousness or the principles of consciousness, the The beneficiary is its citizen. Every person living will have the benefits, because now we are, creating a reality where heavens can be.
Hmm.
Now, when mentioned the word heavens, it sounds a little bit like a fairy tale, but not really, because the reality is, if we are in a state of joy, we are in a heaven. If we are in a miserable state in our emotions, we are in hell. So put that in a macro field. An entire nation, awakened consciousness means a nation that is happy.
No, I love that. That's wonderful. That makes a lot of sense. The only thing I'm not meaning to be a downer, but I think of Gandhi and I go, he got shot, right? Isn't that
Pardon me?
Gandhi? Didn't he get shot?
Yes. See,
See, that's the
uh,
part that I'm going. How can we
okay,
neutralize that kind of reaction? Yeah.
yes. See, look at it this way, okay? Now, if you take the case of all the masters of the past, from Christ to Plato to Mahatma Gandhi to Martin Luther King, all these masters, like they had their life abruptly ended because they were actually coming to shift humanity in consciousness, and and humanity couldn't handle it. If Christ was amongst us today, he would have been as a revered teacher. Everybody would have loved his teaching, because in today's world we are able to equate with what he was teaching as common sense. In those days, it was not common sense. He was a disruptor. He came to disrupt a particular way of thinking to work anew.
Mm. And Gandhi
So
also was a disruptor. Disruptor, was he? Yes.
To a good extent. See, at that time, Gandhi had, there were two paths. A path of two paths to independence.
Mm-hmm.
One path was the non-violent way, which Mahatma Gandhi was mentioning, and there
Mm-hmm.
was the other path, which was basically a way through violence, which was like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and others. Now, there's still a conflict. What actually won independence for India? Now, we could say, nonviolence, because when there was a non-cooperation movement that took place, all of India simply stopped working. And that's when the British realized the 200,000 or so number of officers here in India had to face with about 150 million or 250, 200 million people at that point in time. And they realized, oh my God, what if they did turn violent?
Wow. That's a lot of people, right?
What they turn violent. So, like this whole process, of the independence was one dimension, but what Gandhi came to teach was a thing of non-violence. At the same time, uh, you know, there was a level at which he was trying to. I would thank Gandhi for having created, having uh, got India's independence without bloodshed, because
Mm-hmm.
after that, India has been a relatively very peaceful country with so many religions and so many religions all put together. And you go to any town, any small village, there'll be uh, not one or two temples. There'll be so many temples, so many churches, so many mosques, all in the same place,
But and
and
they
all across
don't
India.
compete.
And yet, there is relatively phenomenal levels of peace in India.
Hmm.
So one of the things I noticed in my own household was that there was a picture of Mecca. There's a Christ, there's Mary, alongside with all the Hindu gods and goddesses,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the general thinking in India, which is in inclusivity.
I like that.
So it's a funny thing to look at it, that when Buddha uh, started his started preaching, wherever he went, uh, you know, he was he was disrupting that particular society,
Mm-hmm.
and wherever he went, people joined him. Now, what did the Hindus do? If this was in any other place across the globe, Buddha would have been assassinated. But
Mhm.
here, the Hindu said, "Oh, he's another god of ours. He is the next avatar of God," and made and and instated him as another god.
Oh wow.
This
Okay, so they
this
accepted
is
him totally.
they accepted him as another god, and additional, more the merrier. So, so this is consciousness. This is the layer of consciousness that allows, I would not even say tolerance, I will say honoring and respecting and celebrating all paths to consciousness.
Hmm. So
So
in
conflict
it's
is the reason for conflict is removed.
hmm. I love that. So it's
Yes,
non-competitive, you would say.
exactly.
Mhm.
I would say it's not just non-competitive. It is basically saying, like if, for instance, my child believed in Judaism and was worshiping God, I would say, wow, at least he has some sort of faith, something to hold on to. If my
Mhm.
child was even an atheist, saying, hey, I question the existence of God, I'd say, wow, that is also good, like at least he's beginning to question.
Yeah. So you don't have to give them a lecture or anything. You just say, "Oh, okay." And so, are your
True.
what are your children like? Are they actually very conscious like you are? Are they really enjoying consciousness as they grow
This
up?
is the danger. It's a danger always, to basically try to impose my belief systems on anyone, especially my kids.
Mhm.
So I stay far away from all of this.
Mhm.
It's like assuming another hat and cap.
Mhm.
So they would have their own time to basically question. And when they seek and when they come to me, at that time, I will teach.
Okay.
Until then, I am not going to force anything down their throat. I'm just going to let it be. And I guess this is a very important thing, especially in parenting, because we always want to assume and presume that we know better. Of course, we do know better.
Mhm.
And of course, we do need to create a space, but then it's important for each one to actually step into their own timeline to work on themselves.
And but I think what you're doing is setting up a household in which the respect is innate, so they have that to help flow
Yes,
their own consciousness, right?
exactly, exactly,
Wow.
exactly. No, it's so funny because what happened was like my son, for instance, it was shocking to know that yeah, he he's just 11 years old, and my wife asked him, just as for fun, about who will win in each state, and he hardly knows anything about politics or anything else, and he mentioned 10 states who's going to win, Republicans or Democrats, and 10 states. And all those 10 was exactly what he predicted. And
Wow.
that was so shocking. But
I
that
love
is,
that.
I relate that to,
Mhm.
in the age category of mine, which is 50 plus, we are the indigo.
Mhm.
Then comes the next stage, next category of people who are the crystal children,
Mhm.
like my eldest daughter, for instance, sort of like they know it all. They've had ease and clarity,
Mhm.
ease in their spiritual journey. Everything has been easy for them, very easily dated. Now this particular generation who's just coming up, these are the gifted ones,
Oh,
like I say,
really?
the chosen ones.
How
And this
exciting.
is the wave that we've all been waiting for. The
And they
next
know, they already
generation who's
know.
coming.
Is that right? They
They sort
already
of already know,
yeah.
and they might be at this point in time not actually working on it, but they are powerful seeds.
And for you, back to consciousness, for you or me or for any of us, to realize this about these kids is actually increasing the consciousness around them, even if we never speak about it, right?
Of course, yes. See, it's like there's so much of information that's going on
Hmm.
everywhere,
Some of it's so
and
terrible. I'm sorry.
it is, and and it's like, I would say it's like flowers.
Mhm.
all over the world. And, the bee that actually drinks up the flowers is our own quest for it and the timeline for it. And the pandemic moment has actually put us to question a lot of things.
Good. Yeah.
And that's what's happening now. We have begun to question. We are, like whenever we have problems, that's when our mind is sort of like vulnerable and it's wanting to go inward, and it has a propensity to go inward. But when it
Mhm.
goes inward, to actually plunge within to hold the truth then begins to, I would call it the inner guru. Once
Mhm.
the inner guru is awake, now we are able to see in clarity from above the mind and
Mhm.
see in clarity what needs be done.
And
And here
the
abundance
resonance
flows.
of what's true and what isn't, right?
Exactly.
Mhm. No, that's really really interesting. So here's what, well, not more than interesting, it's more in my beingness I'm enjoying this. But I'm watching, you're going to do you are doing the declaration of consciousness, and you want to have it in different, or you're going to have it in different countries. Uh, and I hope it'll spread like wildfire, like the COVID
Hmm.
did. But
See, it's, yes.
I was just going to ask you to tell the listeners how you're going to infuse our consciousness of our people with it.
Yes. Um, See, when we talk about consciousness, we want to make sure we are empowering ourselves, not only uh, the external world of consciousness, where that reality is that which vibrates from a higher place, but also from inside, from within. We want to ensure that we are empowered. So, the Declaration of Consciousness movement envisions, we are actually building an online grid where each one of us can come and be an advocate to consciousness, be an ambassador to consciousness. Now, in our life experiences, one dimension is what is our work, what is the what is the work we do.
Hmm.
Now, by coming in and saying, okay, this is the work I do, instantly we're connecting to the global dimension of, let's say, you might say, I'm into yoga, I'm connecting to the global audiences of yoga. Or
Hmm.
let's say you might say an artist, that's one dimension. The next dimension is, if you are an author, or if you have read conscious books, what are your books? Or, for instance, the movies, like there's some phenomenal, beautiful movies that are languishing, and this is coming, the world sort of has forgotten movies like Powder, for instance.
Hmm. Hmm. I
Now,
love
these,
that.
like, if you mention this, this now gives everyone the opportunity to check out on those conscious movies.
Mm-hmm.
In the pandemic time, when you go into Netflix, we don't know which movie to watch, really.
Hmm.
And even if we do, even when we talk about conscious movies, there are different dimensions. But at the same time, our
Hmm.
grid is for those who basically want to mention which, the movies. They might be a movie producer seeking a vast, huge, or a conscious audience for their book, for their movies, for their music. So this would enable content. The next dimension is database. That is each one of us now coming together is the database. And the third is the eyeball. The eyeball really means
I like.
awakening the vast humanity that this is there's a way to attain individual freedom. There's a way in which we can reach consciousness to each one. There's a way in which we can empower the light of each and the light of consciousness for all.
Mm-hmm.
So this movement, Declaration of Consciousness, the first step would be go in and sign
Okay.
in and wait, because as we take the next few steps, it is how to allow each of us to participate in a
Mm-hmm.
way in which we are causal of abundance for ourselves. We are able to actually allow all the self-help. See, when you awake, we see uh, beyond the mind, we see out of box. We are able to resolve things from a higher place. And if we all come together, we are the solution to just about every limitations and every threat humanity faces, from global warming on one side, all the way to religious wars and terrorism, all the way to the other end to the economy.
That's very exciting. So, how do people sign in? I mean, do you sign up, literally sign up physically?
Yes, the sign up online, which is declarationofconsciousness.org, or sign, SIGN, sign,
Mm-hmm.
DC dot org. So this would be the sign up for the Declaration of Consciousness movement, and what we envision is that every nation across the globe adopting the principles of consciousness,
Uh-huh.
and United Nations actually endorsing us, so that we understand that humanity understands that it's such a basic right that is an absolute need for all of humanity, of
Mm-hmm.
each human.
Even just signing up moves our thinking, our head out of the confinements of the way the social structure has been, doesn't it?
Yes, and when the power of we is a very powerful word. When we wake up, we understand we are the spirit having this
Mm-hmm.
human experience.
Mm-hmm.
But as spirit, in reality, the I has gone away and it's been replaced with the we.
Mm.
Now, what if that we was all the masters of consciousness coming together?
Mm. I love this.
So, like
This is,
we
Nandhiji,
see
this is
things.
very
Mhm.
exciting. Is it not? I'm going, whoa, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I
Yes,
notice you understand a lot about media and so on, and I'm like, well, I guess that's the avenue in for a lot of people, isn't it?
the the truth is, we are all today armed with the ability to be online. We
Mm-hmm.
have a computer, we
Mm-hmm.
have a voice, we have our story, we have something to give. Every one of us,
Mm-hmm.
and like the previous paradigm was, there was the 1% who basically owned virtually the whole economy.
Mm-hmm.
This has to shift.
Mm-hmm.
This has to move to the dimension where each of us have a place to a role to play, and a
Mm-hmm.
path, and our abundances.
Mm-hmm.
That old structure has to diminish, and the new structure is now taking up.
And when we're centered in this, we are a lot more innovative, aren't we? We're less afraid. We're more innovative, and we can see and feel what needs to be done to evolve the species. Is that right? Is what?
Absolutely. What was pretty surprising and shocking to me was a statement I read where it mentioned that all the scientists of India were yogis.
Oh,
Now,
really?
if you go back to time, we are talking about 4,000, 5,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
One of the yogis mentioned the speed of light, which is pretty much accurate. One of the
Mm-hmm.
yogis mentioned the dimension, the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and the Earth and the Moon. One of the
Wonderful.
scientists actually mentioned like it's amazing when you and the age of Earth, which actually is pretty much accurate. So when Carl Sagan mentions that in the timelines of definition of the age of the universe and the age of Earth, the Vedas actually had it pretty much accurate. But
Isn't
this
that
is because,
wonderful?
and Carl Sagan was an atheist. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this dimension of understanding all of the universes can come only from one place, and that is the mind that is free, the mind that is seeking, and the mind that is in knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the power that comes to anybody who quests for consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We wake up to a higher self, and the higher self has a unique potential. Every one of us has something so uniquely powerful, a superhuman, a superman, a supernormal power within us that wakes up. And that is the power we want to bring to play together as one
So
in consciousness.
we're all greater. You know what I mean by greater? Yeah, we're greater than we think we are because we're going to open to the collective knowing, what the universal knowing, the infusions of
Exactly.
information.
Pretty and much. We wake up to understand. Suddenly, we wake up and realize, oh my God, I am here for this purpose. And the moment we know we are here for this purpose, we begin our heart's work. Now we are gifted with enormous powers of inspiration. Wow. And that is also well-being, that is also goodness, that is all the dimensions of the extra energies to come. This is why the six-pointed star is very important. The five-dimensional being we are itself is a powerful dimension, because to realize the five dimensions we are, we need to realize we are the five elements. That is earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the five. But within the five, once we've understood the five, the sixth dimension pops up. The sixth dimension is recognizing ourselves as a cosmic child, the child of the cosmos. Now in the sixth dimension, ESP clicks in. We are able to think beyond the limits of the mind. We are beyond the limits of our karmic imprints. Now we are not only, we operate from the knowing, we are guided, and we have the power of infinity rested in our finite beingness.
I love that. And also, you can send, I mean, you know this already, but we can be sending our thoughts and feelings and our intentions to one another without having any physical connection. All of that just gets bigger and bigger, doesn't it?
Yes. I had, one of my gurus, Mahasiva Swami, was living in the forest by himself, and this was actually a tiger sanctuary, and he was living inside most of the time he'd be spending inside the tiger sanctuary.
Oh my goodness.
And he'd come back, and I would able to connect with him once in a while. And when I connected with him, it was only because when I was meditating, I would hear him say, "Call me, call me, call me," and then I call him, and then when I call him and say, "Oh, here you are. I'm glad you got my message."
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Oh, I love that story. And we unfortunately have to end this, but Nandhiji, do you think we can call you again to come back on?
Of course, Divine One. Of course. So much of joy, and like I leave each of us with one thing, and that is that of all the wealth we have, the single most precious wealth, the wealth we carry from death to birth and the birth to death, is consciousness. So if we are understanding that this is the seeking to be more conscious, then we have all the other experiences that actually is an abundance in all its forms. So grateful, Divine Veronica.
Wonderful. Well, I am so grateful that you joined us, and thank you to all you listeners. I hope you've enjoyed Nandhiji. And Nandhiji, it's declaration of, what is it called? Declaration of Consciousness. If you would be ready to sign up and certainly go in and look and see what the information is that's there. I know it would be just great for all of us to connect that way. So thank you so much, Nandhiji. Thank you.
Grateful to you, Divine Veronica, and grateful to each one of us who spent time here connecting to us. Grateful.
Wonderful. This is Veronica Entwistle bringing you Paradigm Shifters. Thank you for listening.
Grateful for the moments we shared together. To learn more or to connect with Nandhiji, email us awake@nandhi.com, NANDHI.com, or visit our website nandhiji.com, NANDHIJI.com. In grace and blessings as one. Om Namah Shivaya.